All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. So, Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend have very different ideas about their mothership, which is called The Who. In case you didn't know that, there are some people that are starting to forget about The Who, but they are an amazing band, not to be confused with the World Health Organization. Please don't do that. I mean, it's bad enough, you get the WHO out there and people are like, "Yeah, I like the Who." I'm like, "Which Who do you like? Make sure you pick the right one." Speaking of picking the right one, holy crap, Batman. This came out a couple of years ago and it's amazing. This is John Elefante, former lead singer of the band Kansas. Now he likes to hang around with people like John Schlitt. I always feel like I'm doing something wrong when I say John's name. And they perform all kinds of classic rock tunes with the Jay Sekulow band, which I think is kind of cool. But John is brilliant. He put this out a couple of years ago. It's called The Amazing Grace, and he still sounds like John Elefante from pick a time period, really. I mean, vocally, he's really good. I'm pretty sure he was at one point asked to return to Kansas. And from what I understand, he was still in the process of deciding whether he wanted to do it. And then the band decided to just move on, and he hadn't said no yet. So, anyway, this is really good. This is modern, classic, and somewhat progressive rock, what you would expect from John Elefante. Just a brilliant guy, and certainly could still be fronting a band, but he's great as a solo artist. Now, Roger Daltrey, he's about to go on tour, and there's this back and forth now between him and Pete Townshend. Townshend is like, yeah, I'd like to go out and do maybe some more dates with The Who, but, it's Roger's band pretty much. He picks everybody. I'm just replacing the guitarist he normally has on his solo tour. And Roger's like, hey, if you're not really into it, Pete, then I just don't want to do it. And Pete says, I was basically doing it for the money and I'm not really getting my jollies or whatever the right term is. With Pete Townshend, you got to be careful that you don't say something that would indicate that Pete has a proclivity for anything because of what happened how many years ago? Which some people say it was made up. Other people are still kind of curious about it. And I'm not going to, I've already talked about that episode here. The so-called, I was doing research. Pete Townshend, he was doing research for a book that he was writing or something. I don't know. it's you don't do research like that, Pete. I'm just putting it out there. But maybe, there's a 1% chance that maybe he was doing research. Anyway, so Daltrey is about to go on the Not Trying to Be the Who solo acoustic tour. According to the classic rock media, he's not with bandmate Pete Townshend, and that is making some people sad. But he's not going to be screaming anymore during Won't Get Fooled Again. He's going to let the audience do it. Why not bring in a backing track for the scream, right? Why not do that? He says it's silly. He's not saying he can't scream anymore, but I'm thinking he probably can't scream the way he used to scream. But vocally, Roger is still pretty good. He just turned 80 back in March, and he looks great for his age. I mean, but he is going on this tour, and they keep talking about, will the Who do another tour? And Pete Townshend says, I just don't want to do this for the money. Whereas Daltrey says it pays the rent. He joked before he got serious, talking about why he's out there again. But this is his punchline about all of that. He says, I've been given a gift. It would be criminal not to use it until it's no good anymore. And at the moment, it's really, really good, he says. And I'm thinking he's talking about his voice. A few years ago, when he stopped touring, Daltrey said he was starting to lose his singing ability. And he's the one I always quote on the channel when people are starting to lose, their skills when it comes to vocals. He said, "Look, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it." And so I think there's a lot of truth to that. In some cases, you can overuse it and lose it as well. But I think Daltrey has been really smart over the years, and one of the great singers, one of the great front men in rock and roll history. Personally, I think Pete Townsend should find a way to be really excited about going on tour with The Who. That's what I would say to Pete. Pete said, "Hey, maybe we can go out one more time and then crawl away before we all die," or something like that, which is just kind of sad. It's sad. I mean, the fact that Roger Daltrey is 80 years old, that's sad, right? It's sad because these guys who we grew up with and we've taken for granted for how many years, and The Who wasted a ton of time. They weren't doing anything for a number of years. They just weren't all that active. And when they got together, it didn't seem like the old days up until Face Dances came out. Maybe the album called It's Hard, which was the one I think after Face Dances. I think people were still taking The Who very seriously. And then Roger had a solo career, and I thought Roger did well, and Pete had a great solo career, and he did even better. But, if they had teamed up and put all of that stuff together under the banner of The Who, they probably would have sold a lot of albums, and that Who-mentum would have brought them into the 90s. Who knows, right? Who cares, right? Who is talking? Me. That's who is talking. So anyway, folks, just an update on Roger against Pete. Roger seems like he wants to keep going, and Pete doesn't really care. Pete's releasing a box set of live recordings, and I think Roger might be working on new material, which is crazy, but Roger has complained, rightfully so, that when you put out new stuff, nobody seems to care. The record label isn't there for you, and then the people who are surfing the internet looking for great music like yours truly, a lot of us just either don't care or we've moved on to something else, which is kind of sad. Again, all of this stuff about classic rock, toward the end, which we're definitely toward the end of it all. It's especially this first generation bands like The Who. It's amazing that you have both Daltrey and Townshend still here. So they should go out and do one more tour to celebrate, call it the We're Not Dead Yet tour, like Phil Collins, like his book, I'm Not Dead Yet. They should do that. Maybe bring Phil. Now, I was going to say you can't bring Phil anywhere. Phil, they might be able to wheel him into the audience. It's sad. Again, all these people, just mortality is a real bummer. All right. One more time for John Elefante, The Amazing Grace. Go listen to this. I think you'll like it. There are some really amazing songs on here, and hence The Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound. But yeah, the album, very sweet sound for John Elefante. You would expect no less from a musical genius like himself. I'm Dave. I'm not a musical genius. I don't pretend to be one on TV. If you want to support this channel, though, I still need your help. I was watching someone else's channel because a rock star friend of mine, I'm not going to drop names because I'm trying to protect the guilty. He sent me a link to somebody who was talking about how today's pop music is horrible. And the guy made plenty of sense. He kind of sounded like something I would say. He has 8,000, almost 9,000 subscribers, and he's got 70,000 views on one video. One video. He's got 70,000 views. So I don't understand it. People who subscribe to my channel say the same thing. They're like, I don't get it. You've got all these subscribers and you're getting like 2,000 views on a video. And so I don't know. I should be grateful that I'm getting the 2,000, right, and not complain about that. I've been told the opposite. Do this and you'll get so many more videos. Yeah, or views rather. And I don't know. I'm running out of ideas other than to just keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that there are enough people out there who are subscribed to the channel. Like if half of my subs gave $1 a month, I wouldn't ask anybody for money ever. That would be a better income than I've ever made in my entire life. And I would shut up. I would just, and that would give me the freedom and liberty to do all kinds of different topics, things that I typically don't cover because I know people aren't going to watch the videos. Because I don't know, I have to have some kind of salacious video with some kind of an angle or cool tagline to it or a thumbnail that gets people's attention. And I know all those things are important, but I've always just been conversational, stream of consciousness. Sometimes it's a little disorganized, but it's how I get a video or two out each day. So in any event, folks, thank you for supporting the channel if you already do. And for those of you contemplating it, it really does offset what the algorithm has been doing to this channel for about a year and a half, I would say now. Since January of last year is when things really went down the tubes. And yes, the comments were not on back in those days. A lot of people will cite that. You have to go back like 3 years now, I think, maybe 4 years to have that, A-B comparison. And I really didn't see a big change when I did that at all. It was later that I saw that change. It was much later. In fact, 2020, the fall of 2020, that political season, and I'm hoping something good like that happens in 2024. The advertisers go out there and they just invest and they say, yeah, the problem with my channel is I am definitely not on anyone's side. I mean, it's just, this is very different from 2020. I hope something good happens, but I don't know what that is anymore. I don't know what good is, all right? Because it's really what you're always voting for now is the lesser of two lessers, okay? You've got a lesser here and a lesser there, and so people aren't going to, if I was cheerleading maybe for one person, that might be helpful for me, but I don't want to grift that way. I don't want to pretend I like something when I don't. I do that with music content as well. People say, how come you don't like X, Y, and Z? And I go, because it sucks and I don't like it. Some people might like it. I'm not saying it's done poorly. Sometimes it is, though. I'm saying it's just not my cup of tea. And sometimes people get offended by that. These politicians today, they're really not my cup of tea. All of them, 98% of them. So anyway, folks, that's it. God bless. Pray for peace. I know that's not a real hip thing to say. I should say, I hope somebody destroys somebody else. No, pray for peace. The carpenter I follow, I mean, he is a peacemaker, right? He is not a warmonger. So I am rooting for peace in the Middle East and around the world. And apparently we've got ships now that are heading toward Cuba. That's not a good situation at all. And people aren't really talking about that too much in the media. So if you want to know more about that, hit me up over on Patreon if you haven't heard, because that's World War III material right there. All right. We went from Roger Daltrey to World War III. I'll talk to you soon.